Now, as Nigeria heads towards what could be a milestone election in February, how much does the 2023 ballot matter to the rest of Africa and the world? Well, according to the experts, the stakes are high, not just for Nigerians, but for the sub-region, the continent, and the international community at large. So whatever happens in February, Nigeria's political trajectory will affect countries far beyond its borders. Already, external observers such as the UK, the US, and the EU have been warning of targeted sanctions against anyone using violence, corruption, vote buying, or threats to undermine democracy. And tonight, America's State Department has announced that it is banning visits of what it calls specific Nigerian individuals to the US, citing the undermining of democracy in a recent election. So, with all eyes on Nigeria as it prepares for the 2023 ballot, is there international confidence in the quality of the candidates and the process of the elections? Well, for his analysis of Nigeria's 2023 ballot and the consequences for the region, the continent, and the world, I'm joined now in the studio by Professor Tunde Esan, Professor of International Relations with a focus on the history of African elections and democratic developments on the continent. Thank you very much indeed, Prof, for coming in.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Charles.
Let's start with the US making good on a promise to leap down from a great height on anyone who undermines democracy through vote buying, violence, corruption. It's imposed visa restrictions on unnamed individuals who it's accused of undermining democracy in a recent election. What's your reaction to that? Because obviously it's a warning shot to all those taking part in the 2023 election.
Yeah, like you rightly said, Charles, thank you very much for bringing me here, for inviting me. It was a warning shot, like you rightly said. There are tendencies, you can never rule it out in a developing society like ours, for people to say, look, oh, we can get it done. We can fix it. The term fix it says it all. What Secretary of State is saying on behalf of American government is that, look, fix it and get fixed on our, and get fixed on our sanction list. That's what he's saying. It's a signal to the leading democracy in the world, one of the leading trading partner in Africa to Nigeria, and one of the leading trading partner to Nigeria. And the voice of America when it comes to democratic elections cannot easily be ignored. That is for sure.
So from what you're seeing on the campaign trail so far, what kind of message would you say Nigerian politicians are sending to the world? If an international observer was looking at it, what image would they be seeing?
Thank you very much, Charles. What I see, sometimes I feel a little bit disappointed. The key issues are being ignored. You understand? Nigeria is very, very important. Projected population of 280 million people at the end of 2022. By 2022, at the end of 2023, we're talking about 222 million people. 4 births every second. 4 births every second. You know what that means? 4 births every second. And what is this basically? That nobody is talking about what is going on with the health sector. What is going on with the education sector? And sometimes I feel a little bit disappointed. Do you know the size of the population, 0 to 14 years in Nigeria? 89 million children that we have. 89 million. Go and check it very well. 41.7% of the entire population is about 89 million. It means that whichever way you look at it, from 4 years to 10 years will be in primary school, whether you like it or not. That means on the average of about 60 million children are supposed to be in primary school, bigger than the populations of many countries in the world. How many classrooms do we have to accommodate them? Those are the issues I expect them to be talking about. Brickbats, mudslinging,
Yeah, but through the eyes of the international community, how important is this 2023 election? How much does it matter to the rest of the world?
I'm saying exactly the same thing. Under 25, constituting about 62% of the entire population. You understand? Huge market for any serious country in the world. Western or Asian country. Very, very huge market, one of the biggest markets in the world, you understand, for any of the products. And of course, it throws potentials for Africa. For example, everybody wants to find out what is going on with Nigeria. Nigeria constitutes about 10 to 15% of the entire population of Africa, 1.44 billion people. Understand? And in West Africa, you have about 655 million people. Nigeria alone has a population of 222 million people. And that's quite huge.
Right, so lots of expectations.
420 million people. Right. And Nigeria alone has about 55% of the entire population. So what it means basically is if you are talking about West Africa, you are talking about Nigeria. If you are talking about Africa, they are thinking about Nigeria. So it's very, very important and critical.
So do you have confidence when you look at the candidates and the process that they will meet those regional and international expectations?
Well, let me say this. We sometimes ignore some of the fundamentals when it comes to personalities in the elections. The personalities we're talking about are really not bad, you understand? Every society decides the kind of leader it gets. You can't manufacture a leader. That's the truth of the matter. Shortly before now, Showore left this place. I just keep asking myself, any society will give respect to him. And if he has an opportunity of taking over the reins of government, he will do very well. Everybody is talking about social media and everything. The first guy in Africa, I believe, that has the largest access on the internet, Sahara Reporters. I remember about 10, 15 years ago, sitting in my sitting room and they're doing a review and they report on Sahara Reporters in Africa and the impact it's having all over Africa. Most people didn't remember that Peter Obi was, at the age of 36, 37, was the chairman of Guardian Express Bank, and later, before the age of 40, became the chairman of Fidelity Bank, you know, shortly before, even before he went to contest for the election. Many people didn't remember that in 1992, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu was a senator here under the tutelage and the supervision and the superintendent of the Senate president then, who was 40 years, you understand? That is quite interesting. And most people didn't know that the big man himself, the vice president, former vice president, Abubakar, you understand? He's a great man, whichever way you look at him. The former vice president was in his 40s when he first ran for the presidency in 1992, you understand? And not only that, he became the vice president in 1999, set up one of the leading universities in Africa, you understand? And one interesting thing, I met him some time ago. At the age of 73, he just got his master's in international relations. That was quite motivating to me. And looking at the leading candidates, I think we have the character. But of course, when there are so much more, nobody knows who is clean.
Well, I was going to say it's great to hear you talking this way, because obviously you're not partisan in any way. So you're simply looking at them as a professor of international relations and doing an assessment. And are you clear on their positions on the concentric foreign policy focus that Nigeria has, which is the subcontinent, the continent, and the world?
Oh, well, let's put it this way. Imagine geopolitical equations and considerations more often, you know, determine what your foreign policies are going to be. You can't afford to take a back seat with emerging scenarios in Europe based on the events unfolding, the war between Ukraine and Russia, if you want to be relevant in the world. You can't afford to be indifferent to what is going on in Afghanistan if you want to be relevant in the world. You can't afford to be indifferent to what is going on in Eritrea and some parts of Africa, particularly in Congo and the Central African Republic and the Great Lakes regions if you want to go. So essentially, when people talk about concentric and otherwise, I look at it and say, yes, it might be, you know, a slogan of about 30, 40 years ago. But imagine world events and geopolitical equations and developments sometimes and essentially determine what your direction of foreign policy is going to be. But one thing is very constant, the state of the nation. That determines the kind of respect they give to you. Do they invite you to G7 when they are meeting? Critical decisions are being taken. Do they invite you as an outsider to come and give their opinion about Africa when Security Council members are meeting privately? Those are the things that happen if they respect you all over the world.
To be fair, quite a bit of that happened during Obasanjo's
Yes,
time,
that's
between
what I'm saying.
1999 and
Yeah,
2000. So
that's what I'm
basically,
saying.
the bottom line is that whoever takes over has
Yeah.
a lot of work to
Has a
do
lot of work
to
to do,
build
yeah.
Nigeria back up to that
Yes, yes,
credibility level.
yes.
And some have suggested that Nigeria is a classic example of double standards, often preaching democracy abroad, but practicing something else at home. Do you agree with those who say that Nigeria has got it wrong domestically and must now, at this election, play a crucial role in giving its own people proper democracy that would be consistent with not just what it preaches abroad, but consistent with its foreign policy objectives?
Yeah. Of course, that is very important. That's why we are going to have an election in the first place. That there must be a change in the way we think, in the way we do things, in the direction, in our trajectory. There must be a new thinking, when it comes to issues that affect not only Nigeria but the world. You can't be talking about democracy outside the country and ignore sin within your borders. That is actually antithetical to the whole concept of democracy. But it depends on the personality. Like I said, the key personalities involved know exactly what to do. Nobody will go to UN and start talking anti-democratically. It's not possible, isn't it? Even I can show you some countries that are even worse than Nigeria. The head of state will stand there and talk about democracy. But essentially, it's an evolving society, a developing society. When you look at its trajectory, you discover that we are evolving. There is a downside, a big slip for the past few years. I must confess to you, you understand? They respect you depending on who your head of state is sometimes, you understand?
Absolutely.
There's a big gap, you understand? I hope this gap can be filled in the next few weeks or in the next few months when we have a new head of state. Like I said, the contestants are not really bad, but things have gone so bad and Nigerians are so disappointed that most people don't even see some of the key areas and some of the areas of strength of some of these presidential candidates. Like I said, Atiku Abubakar is quite sound, you understand? And he has an understanding of key issues, same with Peter Obi, same with Showore, same with Kwakwa. So you remember Kwakwa was a deputy speaker in 1992, in his 30s, you understand what I'm saying? And he became a governor under the tutelage of Abubakar Rimi, the great Abubakar Rimi of Kano, in 1999. Okay. You understand? As a young man.
Obviously, we're going to have to watch whichever one of them wins and what they do when they come into power. Professor Tunde Esan, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's always very enlightening talking with you. And he is, of course, a professor of international relations with a focus on the history of African elections and democratic developments on the continent. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.